All right, we are live on the air. We are going to talk about the FCPX Creative Summit in Cupertino, California on November the 16th through the 18th, mainly, but we'll talk about everything else about Final Cut Pro as well. And today we have, I'm going to go by the order that's on my screen. So we have Philip Hodgetts all the way to the right on my screen. Say hi, Philip.
Hi, Philip.
There you go. Patrick
Roland Martin's laughing sticks in my brain still to this day.
Oh my goodness.
Patrick Southern, Serena Catania, and Brad,
Hi.
Mr. Off the Tracks.
Hi.
Who just had 60,000 watches of his Off the Tracks view he did with Papa. What is it? How do you say his name?
Sven Papa.
Papa. I call him something different on my show. So then, it's always a matter of pronunciations when I get people. Usually I ask them off the air, then I try to remember, but sometimes I'm not successful. So there's everybody here in this chat is going to be at the summit, correct?
Yep.
We have one first timer.
Oh. Well, you might as well start coming in as a VIP as a sponsor. So yeah, that's the best way to start.
I do it right. You know, this girl does it right.
I heard you have even a chauffeur bringing you up there, right?
I wish. Yes, actually, I do. I have two handsome men driving me up to the summit.
Yes, exactly. That's what I heard. So last time, I usually get in there Thursday mid-morning because I only have one or two flights. And the last time we did Friday at a theater, right? We did that AMC theater that was in the mall.
Yeah.
Well, this time we're going to another place. Did you guys know that?
I saw it's some sort of a club, right? Some sort of
dinner club. I thought I put it in here. Oh, Saratoga Country Club on Friday.
Woo!
Oh, hey!
For the morning presentation, and there's some kind of a Final Cut Pro panel, I think, and then lunch. And then from there, we leave for Apple from like 1 o'clock to 5:30.
Okay, I wonder what we're going to do there.
Yeah,
That'll
exactly. I have no idea. I think that's 4.5 hours at the Spaceship Campus at the Visitor Center. So I think we're going to the Visitor Center first, I presume.
Even my most optimistic future does not have 4.5 hours Final Cut Pro 10 presentation, the new features.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you.
That's 4.5 hours scheduled for that?
Yeah.
Well, there's two visits, the Spaceship and then.
Oh, the Apple Park Visitor Center and Apple Campus Town Hall visit. So
yes.
Those are two separate locations. So I'm sure that there's a bus ride incorporated in that 4.5 hours.
Exactly. The only question I have is, let me bring this up here. The beginning, it says 9 o'clock over at the Saratoga Country Club, but it has nothing about a shuttle bus getting over there. So I presume there's going to be a shuttle bus from Juniper. They have to be, right?
Yeah, that'd have to be.
Because they have a shuttle for Apple pickup, but they don't have anything about the 9 a.m. start at the Saratoga Country Club. So I guess we'll be shuttling at 8:30 or so. It's not that far. I looked on the map. It's about maybe a mile or two, it looks like.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah. So I'm not sure why it happens on Fridays. I guess that maybe the Juniper's booked up on Fridays, right? Something.
I think it's getting a space big enough to have everybody in the one room at the one time.
Well, that's a good point, too.
How many people are going to be there? Like
last year, it was 150 plus.
Oh, okay. So then it was about 120 the year before that.
Yeah.
And so it's been growing. So maybe 180, if it grows a little bit. And I think having Apple do a presentation and the way the last couple of years have rolled out with new features or new previews of the app, I think that draws a lot of people to come to the conference.
I think that's a major thing.
I think if they hear that Serena's going, then we'll probably get about 250 people going.
I expect Serena to be on stage with the Apple team to have her bring her up there.
Am I going to bring my pom-poms?
Yeah.
Cheers, squad.
Yeah. The FCP Cheer Squad. There you go. That's me.
I do have a theory about why we've got 4.5 hours slotted there.
Okay.
I think it's because Philip has secretly gone behind all of our backs and has produced Metadata the musical and will be performing it.
Sadly, I have not yet finished writing it. But actually, we're heading up to Colorado to spend some time with Jerry Hoffman this next coming days, and one of the goals is I want to finish getting all the songs together for it. I seriously, I still think it's a fun idea to do.
It's a very fun
Patrick,
idea.
you're out of luck. He's going straight to Broadway. You've been outbid.
That's all right. I'm not much of a musician myself, so it'll be good to see it done properly.
So I think I have a role for you.
Oh no.
Yeah, who's teaching best organizational practices for documentaries and other productions?
Not I.
They don't have Patrick. What are you teaching?
I'm going to be teaching 2 classes on Sunday back to back. It'll be handling log and raw and FCPX at 2:30.
Okay.
I know nothing about those subjects, so I'll have to do a lot of reading.
No, I've given you the moniker Mr. Raw, so that's sticking. That's a sticky one.
and actually, people who've just learned how to do something are the best to teach it because they've just learned all the pitfalls about learning it. So generally speaking, I'd rather learn from somebody who's only just got a mastery of something than somebody who's known it for 20 years because they're going to forget what they didn't know.
And also they get bored with it sometimes.
Yeah.
That's
and then
true.
I'll give you a guess as to what class I'm teaching during the 4 o'clock hour on Sunday. There are 3 classes. There's case study TBD, practical FCPX compression, and collaborative workflows.
I would guess collaborative.
Oh my goodness.
Because of LumaForge? Could that be part of it? I'm so smart.
That's why we got to have you as a presenter, Serena. Yeah, that's exactly it. I'll be doing the log and raw stuff at 2:30, and then I'll at 4 o'clock be doing collaborative workflows. Yeah, should be a fun time.
Philip, can we guess which one you're going to do?
I'm not teaching anything, so you can guess all you like.
Oh, you're not.
To this point, I'm not. No.
Oh, there was one on there. I thought maybe it was you. It was the. I was going to ask you about it actually. Where the heck is that? The one about the text-based solutions, but it says plural solutions. So that's more than just
intriguing.
one.
No, I have not. I wasn't even aware of that.
They don't have Builder in there. I'm taking my pom-poms and going home.
That's right. Oh, I'm surprised because you've taught the last 2, right?
No, I didn't didn't teach the last one. I did on the first 2, but not the last one.
Okay, the one I was at, the one two times ago, you did some kind of a mobile shooting setup.
Yes, it was more the small kit filmmaking.
Right.
Yes.
But you're going to be presenting for a minute early in the morning, right? On the beginning day.
On the Friday, the platinum sponsors get 10 minutes to address the whole conference, and of course, I'm working on that already.
Oh, of course, absolutely. So I've been playing around with transcription services. So, what does Lumberjack take in the form of transcriptions? Did they take the standard formats?
Well, the one thing we learned when we first worked with transcriptions in Predit many years ago was there was no such thing as a standard format. Okay. In fact, one of the most complex pieces of work in the whole thing is the parser that Greg has got to try and guess as to what your intention was with your formatting. But yeah, our native format is the Speechmatics JSON format, but everything else we accept pretty much everything that has. The only one we've run into where we can't get a format from them into us is currently with Simon Says AI, but we'll pick up the ability to work with their source when we finish SRT support into Builder. That's a lower priority.
Oh, okay.
I'm loving using JSON.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about JSON is that it's absolutely locked to every word. So you never get the video and audio out of sync, whereas with transcripts that only have a timestamp per paragraph, we're interpolating a little bit in between, which is why Builder has the ability to trim a clip, to trim the actual edit points within the app so that you can tweak it for that. But it's not necessary when we work with the JSON. And it's actually magical to just click within the app, click an upload button, a submit button, and a minute and 45 seconds later have 14 minutes of transcript back in Builder, ready to go, ready to start working on, all broken down into its keyword ranges.
Oh my goodness! How do you get your JSON files? What services are you using, or is that something that's now built into Builder?
It's all now built into Builder. We actually communicate directly with Speechmatics. We chose Speechmatics as they're generally recognized as being the most accurate speech-to-text engine, and because they have a lot of European language support. And Lumberjack is actually very popular in Europe, as is Limberforge. I mean, we both are popular. I think for the same reason. In the European markets, are much smaller languages markets, so they have to constantly find more efficient ways of working, and that's where Lumberjack has been able to help in those markets. And I think that's where people look towards Limberforge for more reasonably priced solutions that still scale and still work.
I think that makes perfect sense. Also, for Lumaforge, we've also got Ronnie over there, and he's one of the most charismatic people that I've met.
Yeah.
He's all over Europe. Yeah.
And fortunately, he's a Lumberjack fan, so he helps spread the good word about Lumberjack while he goes, about his actual working business.
Well, you know what, Philip? We were talking about how both Lumaforge and Lumberjack are early. People that are using it are early adapters, and in Europe, they seem to be faster than we are at trying.
Well, it's just because they're always pushed to find. I think somebody said in one of the companies in Denmark, every year we're told to do the same thing, but 15% cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good criteria. So we do have a casualty of the Creative Summit.
What?
Oh,
There's pride in intelligent accomplishments like
Oh,
people are dead. Hey, look, there's Tim.
So Patrick, with your Lumaforge's influence in California, can't you get them to open up Armadillo Willie's just for like the weekend when we're there?
Look, man, I wish. Armadillo Willie's is one of my favorite places. I know this is like Patrick's a complete nerd, but I did take the time to look up on the map, and Armadillo Willie's is no longer on the map next to the Juniper. But there is one or two within a few miles. So the question is whether or not we can hire a shuttle to go from the Juniper to Armadillo Willie's, because I think that's what we really need more than we need a trip to Apple Park.
Yeah, that would be good. Armadillo Willie's bus. But I wonder if there's a restaurant in that same building, because it was so handy just to walk out the door and go over there.
well,
According to the map, there's nothing there right now. There's not a thing. But you'd have to ask somebody who's on the ground in Cupertino. I've got a cousin and her husband who live there, so maybe I can ask them to drive by and see whether or not Armadillo Willie's is just off the map or if it's actually gone.
Yeah, exactly. So Philip, you coined the phrase that the Creative Summit is the annual Final Cut Pro family reunion.
Yep.
So people sometimes don't understand the difference between the Creative Summit and things like NAB. Can you explain the difference? Why the Creative Summit is different than the rest of those events?
Yeah, it comes down to, if I put my marketing hat on for Lumberjack, it's really about where the focus of people's interest is. I mean, NAB is a very broad conference, as is IBC, and they cover everything from broadcast down into much smaller production scales, but they're really focused on those bigger events. From our perspective, it's a way of getting in front of a crowd of people, but whether that's very focused or not, I don't know. I think increasingly I'm realizing it's not very focused, and the number of people you can reach at NAB is really quite small. Whereas you come into the Creative Summit, it's very focused just on Final Cut Pro. And it's a group of people who are enthusiastic or knowledgeable about Final Cut Pro, and to some degree a group of people who have been the outsiders together And so that's created a nice sense of community. Early adopters of nonlinear video editing systems were the kind of also the outsiders in that era, and they formed communities that last to this day. The Media 100 community that I first met online in 1994 is still growing strong, still meeting up at NAB every year as the Media Motion Ball. So these communities are very strong, and I think that's what's happening with the Final Cut Pro 10 community. That's a place where this community comes together. Well, the Media Motion Ball was the outcome of that Media 100 community, in the same way that the Creative Summit is fulfilling the same role for the Final Cut Pro 10 community. The people that have been around since 2011, 2012, when supporting and being actively favorable towards Final Cut Pro 10 was kind of odd and the outlier, and outliers tend to get up together, and this is a good place to do it.
Yeah, so it's like a family reunion of misfits in some respects.
I was trying not to say that, but
well, I mean, some of us, if we're considered misfits, we're part of the family. I guess I should say it that way.
Yeah. It's definitely. I mean, not everybody who now comes to the conference has been through the same first couple of years experience. Most people adopted Final Cut Pro Classic adopted it after version 4, not beforehand. So the late adopters are fine. We're welcome to the family, but it's the early adopters that we know best, and we've had a lot more to deal with.
Absolutely. So the people that, Philip, you were at IBC, right? Patrick,
yep.
You were there. So I heard that not Apple, but the Atomos or somebody announced 3.5 million users. Is that accurate, or is that a mistake?
That was the head of Atomos, and I believe it was probably. I doubt that he would have put it into a presentation that is also supported by Apple without having vetted by Apple. I think that is extremely unlikely. My experience has been that Apple tend to announce numbers past when they were really achieved. So I do believe the 3.5 million number.
And it's curious because Apple themselves have announced the last 2 million and 2.5 million at their event at NAB. So this time they didn't announce it themselves. That's interesting.
Well, where I saw it was a Red Shark interview with Jeremy. That's where he said 3.5. Yeah. Whether I wasn't at IBC, so I don't know if he put it in his presentation, but that's where
that's right. It was. You're right. Yeah, but again, Jeremy, to be the first users of one of the first licensees of ProRes RAW, has to be working very closely with Apple. And if you've ever had a close working relationship with Apple, you do not ever say anything of that nature without it being pre-vetted and approved, or you suffer serious consequences.
No, absolutely.
You suddenly become a non-person.
So that's why Jeremy's Twitter's been silent for the last
month. He's been banned. He's in a re-education program.
So Patrick, when you're working have you worked much with ProRes RAW at all?
I've done a little bit of work with ProRes RAW. After NAB, actually, you may remember we did this program in LA with a bunch of students with Apple using Red cameras and whatnot, and I was editing one of the documentaries called La Buena Muerte, and the DP from that actually had shot some ProRes RAW at NAB, so she was kind enough to drop off a few shots onto my laptop, and I was able to play around with ProRes RAW that way. So it was a lot of fun to get to mess around with it and kind of push it, see where its limits were. So
what I'm curious about is the Atomos recorders are necessary, except for the DJI that records
the Inspire
ProRes internally. So that's really hopeful that just cameras will be able to record ProRes internally, because the DJI Inspire camera, I guess that's a good camera, but it's not like a $10,000, DSLR or something.
Sure. I mean, and who wants to buy a drone just to get, a talking head?
No, exactly. Exactly. That would be very peculiar.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think it's possible for it to be built within a camera, but I think that really right now it's a question of which camera manufacturers are going to take the time to license it and actually build it into their firmware,
So, yeah.
Did you notice that, did you hear the announcement that Adobe is supporting ProRes RAW in the next Premiere?
I did not hear that.
Did not hear that.
Yeah, so I read it yesterday. So
that's amazing.
Well, I expect it to be adopted. I mean,
Yeah.
since ProRes is so widely adopted, I just imagine they're just going to update the license, and here you get ProRes RAW included. I can't imagine it'll be any big deal.
No, I think that the two initial licensees probably got a 12-month head start on everybody else, and so we'll not see anything else until that 12 months is up.
Philip, do you expect more metadata controls to appear with ProRes RAW? Because right now they're missing in action, apparently.
They definitely should. I mean, that's more technical metadata, which is not the thing that I'm particularly interested in, but technical metadata is important for a lot of workflows. Patrick's smiling at me.
Yeah, I mean, Philip's, a content metadata guy. That's what I was smiling about. But,
yeah.
I agree that they need them. They need to have those technical metadata controls.
Yes. Yeah.
But as I so quickly point out in our What is Raw video, it doesn't make it any more or less raw because the metadata controls aren't there.
Right.
It just means that the implementation of the raw is not preferable. I mean, you can just as easily make those changes to the raw footage using the color corrector built into Final Cut. But I think the thing that people are missing is the ability to control exposure and white balance and that sort of a thing. In such a way that it follows the clip. Red has kind of set this ground rule that isn't actually a raw requirement, but it is something that's so handy that everyone has expected it to come with their red footage, not red, any raw format now, right? Everyone expects metadata controls with their raw formats. But it's not actually something that makes the footage any more raw to have those controls. But whenever you've got those controls, be able to make
wouldn't that have been based off of the DSLR workflow with raw pictures, like in the Canon and Sony? Like, I think you had that scene file information that you could edit. So I think Red borrowed that from the DSLR world and brought it into the video world. But you're right, it's not a prerequisite.
So in the chat right now, we have Yari Innanen, Gert Cracked, Ronnie Cortens is in there.
Hey, Ronnie.
Lee Herbert, Chuck Braverman.
Oh. Hey, Chuck.
Hey, Chuck.
We're glad y'all could join us. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask. The other interesting thing about the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit this time is, the Jeff Greenberg and Abba Shapiro tips and tricks segment. Abba's not going to be there this year. It's going to be Jeff and Steve Martin.
Oh well, that should work.
Absolutely. But I just noticed that
Steve
today.
Is a very fun presenter, so it's always fun to watch Steve Martin get up there.
Oh, yeah. As is Jeff.
Yeah.
When I interviewed him for the radio show, he was like 2.5 hours. He's like the longest interview ever. It's like, come on, I got to get this down to 45 minutes, Jeff. It was a long one. So anyway, Apple's Visitor Park Center and Apple Campus Town Hall from 1 to 5:30. So I guess we're going to see the Visitor Center. It usually takes us 2 buses, right? If it's going to be, so they're going to have 2 buses busing us there.
I reckon 3 this year because it's going to be.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah,
that's what I'm wondering. And then we get back to the Juniper at the end of Friday. We should know what's going on with Final Cut at that point. So we should be able to make announcements. Last year we were able to. Just the fact that they've done 10.3 and 10.4 the last 2 years, it seems like we should be expecting 10.5.
You see, that's the thing they do. They set you up for disappointment. So it's like big expectation, and then it's like, oh no, we've just got a presentation of what we did last year because we can't show it to you yet. Because we were ready to, but the Mac Pro wasn't ready, so we can't do it because the Mac Pro isn't ready. That happened last time. That the Final Cut was ready for a long time before the Cylinder Mac Pro was released, and they were just holding off till the Mac Pro was ready to do the combined release. So
I'll be darned. Well, that's the other interesting thing. So if it's not 10.5, it still could be 10.4.5 or something. But if it is 10.5, I expect it not to be released until maybe 2019 because we're within 6 months of 2019 at that point, in the middle of November. So,
Richard, I still hold firm to the belief that the reason we're even going to the Apple Town Hall is because Philip's holding out on us and he is preparing Metadata the musical.
At the Steve Jobs Theater, right? Is that what you're saying?
That would be kind of cool.
Richard, are you
guess-
in it? Richard would be in it if we're having it, right? Are you
No,
casting Richard
I
in
can't.
it?
I'm under NDA. I can't talk about that.
Oh, I think everybody on this call is under NDA. How are we even talking about what's going to happen at Apple campus?
Well, nobody. Yeah, exactly. So that was the other curious thing is, so we're, and then we come back to the Juniper at 5:30 plus or minus with 2 shuttles. And then we take a little break, and then 7 to 10, we have the annual networking and expo event, which is probably my favorite event outside of Apple there. That's where Philip's going to be, right?
Yeah. It's now called Send to 10 instead of 7. Oh, that was it's a bad pun joke. Our app used to be called 7 to 10, and it's now called Send to 10. So I was just like you said, it was 7 to 10. So if the event is now called Send to 10. Oh, I'm sorry, that was really stretched. That one worked in my mind.
And that's where they open up all the different presentation rooms into one big room. When we have food and drink, everybody gets to talk to each other, meet the vendors, meet people. Not that you can anyway in the lobby. The lobby of the Juniper has always been a great place to meet and greet people.
Well, and Richard, I think that the real networking event is going to happen simply 3.8 miles away. I got this great link from Serena that shows that the nearest Armadillo Willie's is only 3.8 miles away. I think we're onto something here.
Well, I think we could probably get there for one meal, but before we're eating there like once a day, it seemed like, sometimes twice a day.
Well, maybe 7 to 10, or I'm sorry, Send to 10 on Saturday. We could potentially have, after the tip show, a ride over to the remaining location for Armadillo Willie's.
That's true, because there's no event on Saturday night.
The
Patrick,
expo night.
are you flying or driving?
Probably flying. My wife will be flying up, I think, on Saturday. She won't be attending the event, but she will be attending Armadillo Willie's networking dinner.
She's flying just for that.
Well, I mean, and Thanksgiving's the following week, so we wanted to fly out to our home state from the same place, as opposed to flying, her from Burbank and me from the summit.
Right.
So
the only problem we had last year we previewed Builder at the expo night, and which was great. I spent the entire 3 hours talking to people, and then realized I hadn't had a chance to eat. And guess what? Armadillo Willie's was no longer open at 10 o'clock. The kitchen at the hotel had stopped serving at 10 o'clock. We had to resort to room service at the Juniper, which was, okay, but that's certainly.
How late is BJ's open?
They probably open late, but it was like, oh God, I'm so tired. I don't want to go make that effort to go there.
Right.
I don't know if anyone who's done any presentations would know that if you spend 3 hours solidly, talking to people, doing the same presentation over and over again, the one thing you don't really want to be is sociable.
No, absolutely. Because you've just been there for 3 hours at the top of your game. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and BJ's is an extremely loud and bustling environment. I'd say if you wanted to go find something to eat, nearby, there's plenty of like great Korean and Indian food. Not far at all from the Juniper.
I'll put a map together.
There's a lot of Japanese type sushi restaurants and noodle restaurants and things like that.
But it's Cupertino, so nobody's out after 10 o'clock.
Well, that's true.
They all close up relatively early. So I mean,
that's what Salt Lake City and Cupertino have in common.
When I'm at the Juniper and I cross over to that shopping center, when I first get there, I get some bottles of water and some miscellaneous things. And I asked the locals, I said, is it okay to jaywalk? Because I don't know if they'll give you a ticket. Like they do in D.C., they can actually give you a ticket for jaywalking.
Oh, wow.
Do you guys know? Because otherwise I got to go all the way up to the end and go back around, which I've kind of been doing because I wasn't sure.
Look, man, it's Cupertino. Why aren't you taking like an automated car?
Well, that's true. Get the iCar.
We just need a fleet of automated cars to take us to Armadillo Willie's.
There we go.
Hop on one of the little blades or whatever they're called. What are the little motorcycle things
bird.
called? The bird.
Are you talking about the little scooters that are
Yeah, the
motorized?
scooters. They've got to have scooters around there. Wouldn't that be fun? 150 of us on scooters all at the same time.
I don't know if I'd call that fun. So what is the let me see, what was I going to say? I don't even remember.
You got so distracted by birds.
What are the odds that we're going to see a sneak peek of the Mac Pro?
I'd say if it's at a point where they could do a sneak peek and they're not putting people under NDA for other reasons, then there's a chance we might see it. I don't know. I mean,
well,
I'm sure
here's a question. We've seen a lot of rumors, if you follow the Apple rumor sites, of is there going to be an event in October, and it's looking unlikely. Are there going to be product announcements in November? Is that why they pushed it back? I don't know. I don't know if they'll hold an actual event this year now. They may still.
Well, you're right. 2 years ago, they did the event the day before the summit.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And I don't know if they'll actually do an event in November or if they'll just have a bunch of new products available and maybe preview a Mac Pro to us.
Well, here's the thing.
I'd love for Thursday, the day before, for them to do an event. That was really fun. Even though, they ended that event early with just, here's the MacBook Pro, and we're not going to tell you anything else. Patrick and I were sitting next together.
I think that's how I met you, Brad.
Yeah.
We sat down and we're watching that announcement. Oh, yeah, that was how we met.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember the rest of that story. We don't have to repeat that here.
Well, yeah. The 17% thinner.
I'm embarrassed by that.
But you're right. So the thing is, there's a reason that this event was postponed from the previous years, from the end of October to the middle of November. And I'm presuming that's something to do with Apple. So maybe that could.
I thought it was campus availability, that they actually had to wait for something to be open or available to non-Apple events.
Okay.
I think the visitor center or the town hall might have been that's only been open to Apple events up until this point. So they had to wait to that.
Well,
but
I thought the town hall meeting thing, the first part was still at Infinite Loop, and that the visitor center was the only spaceship.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. So it must have been the visitors. Well, that doesn't make sense either.
No, the visitor center. I've been there.
Yeah. It's been open for ages. Yeah. Well, some sort of it was some timing arrangement. But maybe that.
Yeah, maybe some timing thing. We'll see. I think when I've been following the rumors of Apple, like a new iPad Pro and new Apple hardware, one of the scheduling conflicts that people were pointing out is that Tim Cook is not going to be in town, I think, next week or something. So, we'll see. We'll see if there's an Apple event still in October.
Tim's coming to the Creative Summit, right?
I think so.
Along with Phil Schiller.
Actually, I will say this on Final Cut Pro Radio Live that yesterday I may have emailed Tim Cook and he may have emailed me back. So
subject matter.
I just said thank you for Final Cut, and I made this documentary, and it got on iTunes, and I'm so happy about it and whatnot, and said keep on doing the great work, and he just emailed back, congratulations, best Tim. So it was a very short email, but I did get a reply.
Awesome. That's awesome. Keep that. That's a good souvenir.
Yeah.
So. I actually emailed Steve Jobs back in the day, and his office called back to resolve issues. I was shocked. I was outside mowing the grass one day. My girlfriend came out and said, Apple's on the phone. Steve Jobs' office. I said, you're kidding me. And they resolved.
What was your problems?
It was just problems with some stuff that I was aggravated with, to be honest with you. So, but they did call. I mean, I was shocked, but pleasantly so. So.
Hey, Philip, I'm just looking at some of the rumors, and it looks like there may be some new iPods pretty soon.
iPods or AirPods?
AirPods.
I mean, AirPods.
Yeah.
Like these AirPods.
Yeah, given my less than wonderful experience with them in the last year. I mean, when they work brilliantly, but they've been somewhat iffy for me. I'd look forward to a new version.
I have to say, you know how we all try to fix everything ourselves, right? And we avoid going to customer service whenever possible.
Mm-hmm.
But I have been through this with multiple entries on my I don't know if any of you had that, but I literally spent 6 hours on the phone with Apple last week.
Oh my goodness.
6 hours, but they stuck with me until they and the engineers figured out what had happened and we got it fixed. You know, we're dealing with technology. It happens, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Apple is the only company that when they call back, I expect to get, when they say they're going to call back, that I expect to get a call back from.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Definitely not LumaForge.
Well, I don't have any dealings with LumaForge. I'm thinking more like FedEx and UPS and Amazon and people like that. All say that.
Yeah, I enjoy your Facebook posts when UPS or FedEx can't find your house or
doesn't
show up.
The thing is that the house has been here longer than FedEx and UPS have been in existence. It's just drivers who don't like the look of the road down to our place because it's just got this huge drop off with no safety rail, and they just get freaked out. So.
Hey,
every mapping service will find it just perfectly. But you know, my favorite was the last experience with FedEx where they dropped off this 96-pound package up around the corner, quite deliberately. He actually stopped. He stopped outside the house, saw that I was coming out to give him a hand, drove away, drove back past the house, and dropped it. Anyway, odd thing is we end up having leverage that I could actually have. FedEx trespass every time they go past our house, because a very odd thing about our neighborhood is the homeowners own into the center of the road. So I pointed this out to FedEx that if I didn't get satisfaction, that I was going to ban FedEx, remove their permission for our road, our part of the road, and every time they drove past, I would take a civil case against them for trespass. And of course, serving formal notice to FedEx headquarters, as I would be required to do by law, will be ignored by everybody until I have sufficient default judgments, because I'll get ignored. Anyway, I had a driver and a route manager over here the next morning apologizing.
Wow.
But without that leverage, I don't think I would have ever heard from anyone.
Wow.
So I have news for both Philip and Patrick.
Yeah.
As of next week, we are moving part of the Chianti Story movie over to Rancho Bernardo High School.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to be artist in residence, and they're going to be helping. I'm going to be teaching them how to use Builder to put the radio cut together, and we're going to be on the LumaForge on the jellyfish and all the LumaForge products that they have in their back room there.
Oh, very cool, Serena.
So we're going to be working together on it.
Woo!
Oh.
Yeah, isn't that exciting?
That's very exciting.
Yeah, so I'm sure if anything goes wrong, I'm holding both of you accountable. No.
Well, you have an inside connection to both of them, so.
Yeah,
it's very true.
It's great.
Indeed.
It's going to be fun.
Well, guys, I'm going to have to hop off. Continue having a great conversation. I'll see you guys at the Creative Summit.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it.
See you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, Patrick. Talk to you later. So, are we expecting anything if it is 10.5? I haven't heard any rumors this time around specifically. I mean, sometimes there's rumors. When Tim Dashwood was absorbed into Apple, you could kind of presume that some of his tools would be incorporated into it, which is what happened. But this year, I haven't really heard. Nothing that's substantial anyway. What about you guys?
Heard things, not really. But
Well, yeah.
assumptions, I've got plenty.
Well, give me a big one. Give me a big assumption.
Well, I think I've already said it on this very broadcast that I think collaboration is the next thing they have to tackle. If they don't do it, I feel like the product is kind of in a weird spot. So that's what I'm assuming they're going to show us, but maybe it's not ready.
The thing about Final Cut Pro, it was never, as far as I can tell, it was never designed for collaboration. So they have to kind of crowbar
I don't
it
know
in.
if I agree with that, because the way the libraries on the databases, I mean, the browser is essentially what everyone's, Avid recently came out with their media asset manager, and it's like a rip off of the Final Cut browser.
Brad, remember Final Cut Pro 10.1 had separate XMLs for libraries and projects. They didn't really talk to each other. Projects and events. They didn't talk to each other. Yeah. So that was a year's work to reimagine it with libraries.
Yes, that's true. But even then, I assumed the reason why, and maybe it was just because it was an early development and they hadn't mastered it. But when I first saw the events being separate from the projects, I thought it was because you would be able to share media and work on different projects.
No, that was because it was the way that iMovie had been organized, and they were
Right.
being inspired rather than because it was done in a very short time crunch. The actual development of Final Cut
Right.
was way shorter than you'd really think it was.
But
The version that we
with
see.
that model, wouldn't you think that? I mean, when the events and projects were separate, it kind of looks like it would have been easier to share events between multiple users, and projects could have been. Anyway, we're on a completely different structure now. But
I certainly think having some sort of collaboration will be important, but I think they're going to have to find their own way of doing it. And just looking at a little bit of the structures that are in Final Cut being largely core data based, that is non-trivial to do multi-user. And non-trivial is, code for really, really hard. I'm not saying that they're not trying to crack that nut. I'm just not sure when they're going to crack that nut, because it's going to mean a lot of probably reworking what exists in Final Cut at the moment to do that.
Well, we're going to be pushing the limits on that the next few months with this hour-and-a-half documentary that I'm working on, because we'll be doing part of it at the school, part of it with other vendors, and then part of it here in my little studio. So we're going to have to be trading files.
Well, yeah, until Apple do collaboration, don't forget there's an app called MergeX or Merge 10 that merges the XML, the keyword ranges, and updates a library from multiple different XMLs from, say, assistants. So they can bring that, they can harmonize a lot of the logging in a way that Apple Final Cut doesn't do particularly well at the moment.
Yep.
Well, that's why I'm starting with Builder, Philip, because I think that if we start with Builder, we'll keep those XML exports fairly simple.
Yeah.
Right? And then they'll be able to translate between the studio and the other people that are using it over at RB. I don't know. We'll see. But it's gonna be a challenge, because we have to move forward, and they're not going to be working on everything, just certain events. And right now they're just on Act 1 and 2. So I'm going to continue with the other acts while they're on that. This is going to be a really interesting test of collaboration, of using Builder, of we'll push it.
Well, maybe you should wait till after the Creative Summit before you start.
I want an easy way. You guys are going to laugh at me, but I really want I'm sitting here doing Instagram ads today, and I really need an easier way of working in Final Cut for the portrait mode.
You can set a custom frame size for a project.
Will that work?
Yeah.
Well, is it Instagram square or is it vertical?
Like 1080 by 1080 or something?
Yeah, I thought it was square.
Yeah, you just created 1080 by 1080.
No, it's actually 9 by 16 aspect ratio.
Oh,
it's
okay.
600 by 1067.
Yeah, you can create. I have actually created projects in that size. The year that there was a new feature in Final Cut, I actually did it to prove it could be done.
Yeah.
Philip, leave it up to you.
So yeah, just when you create a new project, go over to the settings and say custom, and then type it in.
But then your window is tailored to landscape.
Well,
so
you need to
you're
get
going to
one
have
of
a
those
little
monitors that you can spin.
Exactly.
I have a couple. Do you need me to bring one to the summit for you? And you can just spin the monitor that's this way, and it'll be fine.
No, that works well for the browser. I think the vertical monitor.
Very much so, especially in list view. It works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things about the browser, I wish it had a combination of list view and icon view, or the film strip view, like 7 used to have, because I can't, I got to see markers and I got to see notes and everything. When I go to the film strip, it's all gone. I mean, you can't see it. I wish you had a combo.
I've sent that request in a few times.
Yeah. Well, 7 had that. They had a combination view. They had a third view like that.
Was it like a thumbnail? Then the
yes, it had thumbnail and that has text. I can't remember what it was called exactly.
And I think Premiere has similar stuff too, where you can have the thumbnail and you can have all your notes and everything off to the side. So
right, exactly.
So
what else are we
What are
looking
you
for?
working on now?
I am. What am I working on right now?
You just had a little baby, a beautiful little baby.
I did. I had a baby last week.
But he worked on that 9 months ago.
It was like a few minutes of work.
Something I put together in a few minutes. Yes.
and then delegated
My
the
wife-
rest of the work to his
My
wife.
wife was in charge of the actual cooking process. Yeah, no, so it was actually the birth was like 3 minutes of pushing, 10 hours of labor and 3 minutes of actual pushing. So it was not as, I don't know if that makes anybody want to pass out talking about birth. But no, it was good. We got home last week and baby's doing well, and she, does what little newborns do: eat, sleep, poop, repeat.
Congratulations on that. So
Yeah.
Brad, you're giving people a present at the who come to the summit. What are you giving them?
Yeah, so we're gonna give away a free copy to everyone who went to the summit. Of course, or is going to the summit. We'll get a free copy of Off the Tracks. Of course, Philip and Serena and you already should have free copies.
Yes.
But for those who don't, and if you want to talk to me and you already have a copy and you want to give one away, let me know and we'll.
I even played it for my mother when we were last in Australia.
Oh yeah,
is that
what'd you
right?
think?
Yeah, she thought it was wonderful because we were in it, but other than that, she really probably had no idea what was going on. It's been at least 35 years since any of my parents have known what I've done for a living. So
They didn't follow it at all. It's
no. I think there's one or two people in my extended family that have some vague idea of what we do, but then not even that's very clear. That's another reason we're going to the summit, because you actually get to hang around with people that know what you do
and speak your language.
and speak your language. Yeah.
Philip, do you have any announcements at the summit?
We'll be showing basically the, as we promised a year ago, version of Builder with integrated speech to text and a lot of features that came from early adopters over the summer. A lot of better ways of finding things in the context of after you've done a search. So Builder is where we're going to be focusing, but I'm going to make sure that I point out to everybody that Builder is just part of Lumberjack. And what I love is that any logging that I might do across an interview, just the person's name and the basic subject of the answer they're doing, all translates all through Final Cut Pro 10 into Builder, so that when you get the transcripts, those keyword ranges are right there against the transcript throughout the entire, from the beginning to the end of the process. So yeah, we're really proud of it. It's something that's not been ever done before. In fact, I love. It might be, was it in the end of Off the Tracks or in the extended Dave Cert interview where he talks about other ways of doing editing, like working with text. And I was curious as to whether that was recorded after we'd previewed Builder or not. But I don't.
Oh no. Okay, so I think I showed you the full.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
The full Dave Surf interview, and he does talk about that being an interest of his, and that was last year during the Creative Summit when I went to interview him. So he hadn't seen Builder at all. But when I did after the interview, I said, "Oh, you should really talk to Philip and Greg," and he's like, "Oh yeah, those guys are smart." So, but I've learned I don't think Dave Surf has a phone. And he is very spotty on getting back to it through his email. I don't know. It's really interesting because he's like a very smart, technologically advanced person who shuns current technology. He's more interested in technology that will be around in 50 years from now than today's technology.
Right. Okay.
But anyway, I want to reach out to Dave again. He's got some really, really awesome ideas.
So one of the things I want to mention, today is the last day to get the special rate at the Juniper Hotel. So if you're on the fence about going to the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, you should do it today. There's no guarantee that the special rate will exist tomorrow. After today, it'll be whatever's available at the rate that it is when you call in. So
it's about $350 a night if on the weekend at the normal rate. So yeah, and that's as a Hilton Honors member with the discount. So if you're trying to book at non-special rate after today, you're probably going to be. I think the non-special rate, even for a Hilton Honors member, was still like $1,500 for 4 nights.
Wow!
Jeez.
So
Thursday,
right
Friday,
now it's
Saturday,
150.
Sunday.
Yeah, with special rate. So today's the last day, October the 16th. I wanted to mention that. And you can find out more at FCPXCreativeSummit.com, all one word, of course. And this year is the same as last year. It says in cooperation with Apple, which is not a surprise, but to see it in writing was a surprise last year.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of events that happen, particularly at IBC, are in cooperation with Apple, but not explicitly said.
Right.
I would.
Exactly.
I expect that Apple would probably involved in the Atomos theater at
that was
IBC.
in this. I thought that was straight up. Yeah, that they were there and doing presentations.
Oh, they were there and doing presentations, but it's the Atomos theater. It wasn't the Apple theater.
Right.
But I don't suspect it. I suspect that it wasn't entirely Atomos.
Were you there, Philip?
Yes, but I didn't do any presentations. But I did put Luke off one of his presentations. He said Luke was doing a presentation, and then he said something about the caption track, and I just went at the back of the. I was like 25 feet away, and he heard me, and he said the caption line or whatever he rewrote it. He's like, I'd laugh because he said track. It's like, you can't say track.
So was there anything? There wasn't really any news. It sounds like from those presentations, it was the same kind of stuff we'd seen if you'd been at NAB.
Yes, yeah, and
okay.
Showing off features of ProRes RAW, showing off features in motion and all good stuff. But no, nothing on metadata.
Nothing on metadata. Philip, how much editing have you been doing?
Sorry?
Yourself. How much editing have you been doing yourself?
Not enough at the lately. I used to do Lunch with Philip and Greg and a couple of other projects simply to give me a reason to do editing. Now I'm just editing up some 2-camera shoots for my singing teacher.
One of my little bucket list things was to be on Lunch with Philip and Greg, and then I told you that, and I think that's why you stopped doing them. So you didn't have to have me on the show.
Honestly, I'll bring it to the Creative Summit then, and we'll have to do it.
You should grab Brad at Armadillos.
I'll have to find out. I'll have to find out who I've lent my other 2 microphone kits to. I've lent them to someone. I've lost track of them, so I'm too.
I can bring one.
I watched the one with Patrick Palmer. There was an older one from like 2015. It was really interesting because he was talking about the way he was envisioning color grading and how we needed to update the tools. And I actually sent it on to Denver Riddle because he just came out with Cinema Grade, and a lot of the things that Patrick Palmer said in that interview, I found that Denver's building that with his new color grading app. Have you seen that, Cinema Grade?
I like it.
Have you looked at it, Serena?
Yeah, I bought it because I wanted to support Denver, but then I actually started using it.
Yeah, no, it's very much you click on what you want to adjust, and you use exposure and color tools to adjust those ranges like right on the image, and that's what Palmer was talking about in the Lunch with Philip and Greg. So that was an interesting little like forward on. Hey, check this out.
I definitely think we should do more Lunch with Philip and Greg in beer gardens. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah. Yep, that was a good one. So I would watch him. You have one viewer.
Richard, have you done one yet? You need to do one.
No. Not yet. Well, maybe we should be bringing the kit with me I have to track down my 2 microphones, but otherwise, if I can track that down, I'll bring it with me. We'll do some lunches while we're there. Because
Serena's been on.
Serena's been on, and then she turned the table and did a Lunch with Philip and Greg with Philip and Greg.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. That was at your house, wasn't it?
No, that one was in
Malibu.
No, that was the one with you in Malibu. The one with us was
anyway, that restaurant in
Burbank,
in the
Caribbean
Valley. Yeah, the Caribbean restaurant. Good.
Yeah,
You're making me hungry. It's lunchtime.
It is lunchtime.
Yeah.
Well, Philip, speaking of hungry, remember this time to get something to eat before you start on Friday night. Get a sub or something, put it up in the hotel room so you have it when you go back.
I'm going to do that. Thank you.
Because that's what I do. If I'm going to, I'll just put, buy something that'll last so I have it on the way home, because usually at the presentations and all, you're just exhausted when you're done.
Yep. That's a good idea.
Well, I hope everybody listening that's not coming registers today to get the good price on the hotel. And
today's
we'll see
the last
a whole bunch
day.
Of new people there.
Today is the last day. It's always a nice amalgam of Final Cut Pro users that's there. This would be my 3rd year. It's probably my favorite event to go to every year. I mean, NAB is okay, but it's just so overwhelmingly big.
Yeah. And it's a chance to talk to the developers. I mean, Find a Cat came straight out of the Creative Summit.
Yes. Ben Broadbeck and Alex.
And then Greg picked up on it, and then we got the basics done, and they said, well, yeah, but we're losing metadata from Final Cut, so we've got to do the pro version to get that done. make sure that we built Ben's.
And I'm the one person who bought the Pro version.
No, you're not the only one. That's for sure. But the thing is, you can leave it till you need it. I mean, if you buy the regular version, it still embeds all the metadata. So if you ever need to pull it back out of the file into Final Cut, that's the time you pay for the Pro. You don't, don't have to do that in advance unless you're going to want that whole full circle of metadata. I was just really jealous of what Adobe were doing with XMP metadata, and instead of waiting for people to do stuff, it's easy just to do it yourself.
Yep.
So speaking of Adobe, what do you guys think about the release of that little app they put out? What was it called?
Premiere Rush now.
Rush. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen it.
It was Project Rush, and they renamed it Premiere Rush.
It's $10 a month.
If you don't have Creative Cloud, if that's all you want.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's included with Creative Cloud, the normal?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Chris Hocking, who's a Final Cut Pro user and someone in the developer of Command Post out of Australia, said he looked at the Project Rush beta, and it's essentially the desktop version is Premiere Pro with a different interface on the top. And that's why...
That's kind of disappointing to hear for me. I would like a rewritten app.
Yeah, no, and that's why when Peter Wiggins found support for Red and all these other formats buried inside the package, it's like, yeah, well, because Premiere Pro already supports those things. So.
Yeah.
But how does the magnetic timeline work then? I mean, you don't have that in Premiere.
No, that's an interface. That's the new interface that they built on top of the core engines and everything that they've done.
Okay, but they didn't rewrite like Final Cut Pro 10 was.
No. They put a new interface on, new wineskins around the same old wine.
Mm. Yeah,
I think I'm looking at it here. I haven't tried it yet.
Scripture says that you can't put new wine in old bottles.
Yeah.
So anyway.
You must look a different version of the Bible than I've been familiar.
No, there's a whole thing about wine, and anyway, it's a whole different.
New wine into old wineskins because they deteriorate.
Yeah,
it wasn't bottles; it was wineskins. Yeah,
it was wineskins. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, you get close. Yeah, it was just a generational thing, wineskins. We evolved to bottles eventually.
That's what.
And you can put new wine in old bottles because that doesn't deteriorate in the same way.
Yeah. So anyway, I do applaud them for recognizing that the magnetic timeline is a really awesome thing, and that younger users are going to catch onto that, and it tells me that we're going to move forward in that paradigm. So
pretty much the only innovation in NLE design in the last 6 years has come from or been inspired by Final Cut Pro. Hover Scrub, proxy workflows, After Effects templates. These are all clearly inspired by the Final Cut Pro 10 release. And they're not direct copies by any means, but they are in the same way that Premiere Rush is inspired by Final Cut / iMovie. Speaking of iMovie on iPad, the Luma Touch coming to your group this week, aren't they, Serena?
No, we're postponing it.
Oh,
we're postponing it. Yeah, the Filmic Pro guys were in Europe and absolutely exhausted, and it was just too close to this trip, so we postponed it.
Luma Touch, we saw it's a iPad app, and it's an amazingly powerful iPad app for something that is actually on an iPad. I mean, it's got 3 tracks, you've got titles, you've got a lot of visual effects. It's and if you look at the team, the people behind Luma Touch, they've been around the nonlinear editing space for a long time. They know what they're trying to create. And they've really smartly solved the storage problem because they talk to devices like a Western Digital Wi-Fi drive, a Narbox, and things like that. So they only load in proxies initially, and they only when you put something into the timeline do they load up the full resolution media. So they've been really intelligent about how they've built this iPad app. I mean, it's really.
I got a demo of that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's the Final Cut Pro I'd like to have on an iPad.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And that's last year at the Creative Summit. Actually, Steve Martin was showing a couple of us. We got the Steve Martin demo. He was so excited about using his iPad
I bought it
Pro
because of Steve. Yeah, I have it on the iPad. Speaking of drives, is it Western Digital that has that drive where you can offload media cards without being hooked up to a computer?
Yeah, and yes, and also a Narbox is the same thing.
Okay, I love that. I wish more manufacturers would do that. Just have an interface with the iPhone or something So you can just offload media cards, maybe check some of them. I don't know how that would work.
Yeah.
The Nexto does that.
Yeah, this is like a Nexto on the next generation. This one's the Narbox, which has now been replaced by the Narbox 2.0, but that's 128 gigs of storage on there in SSD. It connects to an iOS or Android device. It can connect to external videos, external storage as well. So you're not limited just by the 128 gig internal. So you can offload into this. It's got its own power supply built in. It's really quite a neat little device. You got lots of input output stuff ports going on there.
Yeah.
So you can just put your card straight in.
Yeah, I wish they had more drive manufacturers that started making those.
Yeah.
Give us more options. But that's a great idea.
I got to run off.
Yeah.
We got a newborn photo session scheduled.
Oh.
I'm going to run off.
Oh, you can wear Christmas hats for Christmas cards?
I don't think so. I think we're just taking a picture of the kids today.
Okay.
But anyway, it's always a pleasure. I can't wait to geek out. I have a lot of things I want to geek out about at the Creative Summit, so I can't wait to do
I'll
that.
be getting there like Thursday mid-morning, and I'll get my supplies in the room and start one of these live streams at that point. I'll let everybody know. Just to do like a pre-Apple visit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We can do our guests.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to head out too, everybody. So
Yeah, I sort of got to go too. So
thanks, Philip.
Thanks for organizing this.
thanks for organizing it.
Thanks, Brad. I'll see you guys at the Creative Summit.
All right.
Looking forward
See
to
you
it.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't forget, today's the last day. If you want the discount for the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, the hotel at the Juniper, today is the last day that's available. After that, it's going to be first come. Whoever has reservations, doesn't have reservations, you're going to have to pay the full price or an elevated price. Right now, I think it's $149 a night, which is a break from last year. It was $199 a night. So I want to thank everybody for being on the show today. And I also want to thank Future Media Concepts for putting this event on. And I think LumaForge has a lot to do with it as well. See you guys later. I will be live streaming from the event. I'm going to start Thursday afternoon. So subscribe to the YouTube channel where you're watching this now, or go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/group/Final Cut Pro Radio, on Twitter at FCP Radio 1. Follow along there. I'll be posting all the live links. I'm going to probably do short videos on Facebook because it's easier to work with. And then the longer, more complicated videos, I'll probably do them on the YouTube channel. I'll see you guys later. I'll see you at the summit.